Hi guys, welcome back to the Fungi Files. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at ways to mitigate contamination, different ways to manage it, as well as taking a look at our previous Cordyceps liquid culture, as I believe it's starting to get contaminated. The reason that we transfer either from agar to agar or from liquid culture to agar is to test for contamination and hopefully clean up. With liquid culture, there's not much you can do to clean it up. However, with agar, there are chances to save it, and we'll take a look at ways to accomplish that in this video. All right, to start, we are going to be creating a new Cordyceps liquid culture from another culture that I had growing out on agar. I do suspect that our original may be contaminated. It's starting to get a little bit cloudy, so we will be testing that. However, first we are going to make the cleanest one as opposed to testing the contamination by moving our grown out liquid culture to agar. We are going to transfer this clean mycelium into clean liquid culture first, just to prevent any cross contamination if there would be any, but we will be sterilizing the needle in between uses as well. So just as you've seen in previous videos, we are going to go ahead and take our clean culture with a clean syringe. I'm going to flame sterilize this syringe just to be safe. Doing this outside of the still box just to ensure we don't light any isopropyl alcohol vapors on fire. Let this cool down for a few seconds before we're going to go ahead and withdraw 4 to 5 cc's of this culture. And with the culture in the syringe, we're going to go ahead and take this Cordyceps dish, spray it all out, and knock some of that beautiful mycelium loose. I let this culture go a little bit long. It's been sitting since the original inoculation. I do have a master sample in the fridge. However, I prepared this one just in case there was contamination with that first attempt at liquid culture. There's quite a bit. I'm not going to be too picky about getting it all because there's a lot in here. Get as much sent to the syringe as we can. Hopefully you can see thick clumps. We're going to inject this into our culture bottle that's ready to go to the side and then be moved to the incubation chamber after. I'm going to go ahead and sterilize this needle for the contamination test. With our new culture created, we are going to take our freshly sterilized syringe, our original culture that is kind of cloudy. I'm going to go ahead and shake this up real quick. With this shaken up, I'll take just a minute amount of this culture. On the off chance that it is still clean, we do want to preserve it. I'm going to take a new agar dish, fresh one out of the fridge, and inoculate this. Just a few drops of this. 4 will do. And now this is off to incubate to test for contamination. In the meantime, I will be re-sterilizing this syringe in boiling water. And with our syringe sterilized, we can set that off to the side to be bagged up. We are going to flame sterilize our blade real quick. Now, another contamination management technique, especially with these agar dishes, is going to be making transfers. I have the plate that I liked most from our previous Ganoderma zonatum video, and I'm going to take the healthiest growths from this and transfer to new agar dishes. As you can see, there is some mycelium growth, but there is most definitely contamination in here. I'm going to set my clean guys off to the back. We're going to rinse and repeat and mitigate contamination by transferring repeatedly into these dishes. First one, I'm going to take the farthest growth that I can away from the contamination. Transfer to clean agar. Seal that guy up. I am going to sterilize in between each transfer just to reduce the risk of cross-contamination. Hopefully I can get at least one of these plates to grow out so I can cultivate this Ganoderma zonatum or wild reishi on the hardwood substrate we prepared in our previous video. Let this cool down for a second. And likewise, I'm just going to pick some other growth out here on the outermost edge, farthest away from the contamination. With the hope that we can transfer some of this healthy mycelium without contamination. Beautiful. Sterilize this one more time. Let it cool down for a second, and we are going to take our final pick from this nice rhizomorphic tubular growth on the right side. Beautiful. I do feel pretty confident with these transfers, but I do at the same time expect there to be contamination that came along with them. We may have to clean these up a second and maybe a third time for each one. I'm going to sterilize my blade a final time so I can put it away, and we're going to move on to more tips for contamination prevention. And we will take all of our freshly inoculated Cordyceps militaris, Ganoderma zonatum, off to incubate, and we will look for future contamination growth in these cultures. Now, with all of our cultures in incubation, we can go ahead and let them grow to monitor for contamination. In general, you can spot contamination within a few days of inoculation as it's competing for nutrients, and if it's contaminated, it's going to outgrow the mycelium, which is unfortunately not what we want. We want to give that mycelium ideal conditions for it to grow and flourish. So within a few days, you can monitor liquid culture will get cloudy or dirty looking. It'll look like pond water within a few days. That's how you'll know that it's contaminated. As you saw earlier in the video, we can take a few drops of that, put that to agar, and test for contamination that way. I did create a new Cordyceps liquid culture in our new still air box that I created. Moving forward, a still air box is probably the way to go. The open-faced container is good for video, but I did find a way to integrate a viewing port through the top for the camera. Um, it's super important to have the most sterile environment that you can, to keep it clean, keep it wiped down with isopropyl alcohol, to prevent as much contamination as possible and mitigate all risks. With our agar now cleaned up, our liquid culture created, and a new agar dish for the dirty liquid culture, as it might be, created, we're going to let them grow and hopefully spot or not spot contamination. With all that being said, though, thank you very much for joining us today's episode of the Fungi Files. And if you have any questions or comments, please let me know down below.